Hey guys, welcome to the 2016 One Nation of Gamers circuit. We're here with Open number 6. I'm Tannen Grayson. I'm joined by Noshton today. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really good. Definitely excited to see these matches. We have a really stacked top four, all familiar faces.
Yeah, we're going to get into those players just a little bit, but let's talk about what they're actually playing in today. So One Nation of Gamers, they've had 10 1K Open tournaments. This is number 6. So 1K, that's probably the biggest prize pool for some of the Open tournaments out there today. And that's not the only thing they're playing for. There's 5 6K feature tournaments that these kind of move into. Now, you could advance to one of those feature tournaments by winning one of these Opens or earning Geico points by how well you do in these Opens overall. And that all qualifies you for the grand finals at the end. That's going to be worth a lot more money as well. That's a $25,000 grand finals at PAX Prime in August. So that's a total of $60,000 given out by ONOG in this circuit. Now, it's open only to U.S. residents that are 18 plus right now, so make sure you don't miss out on the next one. But we have the top 4 today, as you said. It's pretty stacked. In the first match, we're going to have LBYS versus Zalae. And I know you're pretty intimate with a lot of these players and familiar with them. What can you tell us about the first match?
Well, I'm definitely excited to see this because LBYS is definitely known as a very aggressive player. I'm curious to see if that Paladin is the more control end south or whether he's found that aggressive Paladin that a lot of people have been trying to build lately. And Zalae is just one of those pros that just proves why he is a pro time and time again. He grinds out these opens and he's just been crushing them lately.
I'm a big fan of both these players. I haven't gotten to cast LBYS too many times, once or twice, and was super impressed. I used to actually live with Zalae, so I've got some inside information on his lineup. Pretty aggressive today, so I can't wait to see. I know I don't want to give too much away, but there's a surprise in this lineup for everybody watching here today, and it's going to be a really good one. Once we get past this match, we have another match in the top 4 for you, and that one is going to be the Rat, very known zoo player, very good player in his own right, versus a guy coming off a pretty big win in Chalky.
Yeah, Chalky just off that big dream hack win and just coming here and just place him well again. Rad and Chalky are really close friends of mine, and it's just going to be fun to see them face off against each other.
Yeah, positioned right now with all these decks because you're seeing these like super slow, greedy decks that are trying to get to turn 10 to play N'Zoth, and people that are trying to beat that are actually playing even greedier decks. They're playing a lot of these like OTK lineups to try to win the tournament, though fittingly he did win it with Zoo in the last game. So let's get back to this first match. It's going to be Zalae and LBYS. And like you said, I want to see which version of Paladin this is from LBYS because I'm like you. I think there's an aggressive Paladin out there that could be very successful right now. I think the card Divine Favor is actually very well positioned right now with all these decks because you're seeing these like super slow, greedy decks that are trying to get to turn 10 to play N'Zoth. And people that are trying to beat that are actually playing even greedier decks. They're playing a lot of these like OTK lineups to try to, prey on those, decks that go super long. So all of these decks seem to kind of fall into the favor of if your opponent has Divine Favor, they're going to draw something like 5 or 6 cards for 3 mana. And that seems pretty good to me.
For sure. The other thing that I'm curious about is we see Shaman in both lineups, and there's been the mid-range, there's been the aggro, and then the Totem Shaman, which Zixo has been popularizing. A lot of people brought to the European preliminaries, so could be any of those 3. I definitely mark LBYS for playing aggro Shaman just because he likes to hit the face.
Yeah. Nice quote from his opponent. Zalae has always said, face is the place. And there's a lot of people that say that that's what you should be doing right now to beat these greedy lineups. You should be either going over the top of them with these like 1-turn kill decks, or you should just be getting this really aggressive lineups that punishes any bad draws of them. But the players have the green light. It seems like they're ready to go. We should be going into the match any second now. And there you go. We see it right there. There's LBYS at the bottom. Looks like he's going to be starting out with the Zoo variant. And this is the deck I wanted to kind of have people get surprised by. This is the Warrior deck from Zalae. That's a Mortal Strike in his opening hand.
Zalae is ready to just get in there, start hitting the face. This is definitely known as one of the worst matchups for Face Warrior. Zoo has always been strong against it since the beginning of time, so it's a little rough that he gets this matchup first.
Yeah, see, this is Face Warrior. It has a lot of weapons, and he has N'Zoth's First Mate. He has Fiery War Axe. There's some other surprises in here. I don't want to ruin it all for everyone, but this has some pirate synergy for sure. As you can see, another pirate enters into his hand. So this N'Zoth's First Mate somehow makes it into turn 3. He's going to be able to pump up that weapon as well.
That's going to be a big deal. Enzoth
Yeah.
First Mate is a card that a lot of people looked at and they just thought this card just doesn't give enough value to play, but it's like really good. It's a 1/3 weapon's really relevant, the 1/1 body. It's sort of similar to how the Light's Justice was with the Muster for Battle for Paladin.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think I've actually heard some people kind of say. This is like the 1 mana answer that like Paladin used to have at 3 mana. You get a guy and a weapon and a couple charges, and that's all you need. You only need a few attacks from it. You see that he actually overrides his weapon here because, let's be honest, he needs to get that flame imp out of the way here. It's just too much damage over the course of the game. Also, it helps protect this 1/1 here. Make sure N'Zoth's First Mate is going to be in play for this turn right here, and getting a 4/2 axe is pretty good, especially on this turn. Look how clean this is.
This is definitely his best answer to Gang Boss, which, otherwise would be a problem for his deck. This is obviously the reason to run this deck. Just the Bloodsail Cultist is just such an insane card, and if you get it down on the weapon, you're just going to be so far ahead.
Yeah, and this is what I love about this deck too, the Warrior deck. Look at this curve. He's going to be able to Bloodsail Raider plus Loot Hoarder next turn, and then if he has to use his weapon, then he has an Alkanite Reaper behind this. I mean, these are cards people haven't seen if they don't play a lot of Arena. And then the other side, we even have kind of a tech card too. You see Crazed Alchemist over in LBYS's hand. A lot of people talked about that card's pretty good. Very flexible use, kills Doomsayer on site. So that card's actually popped up a little bit since DreamHack as well.
Yeah, so LBYS is either going to go with the Imp Gang Boss, or I'm curious if he thinks if there's any merit just going to 3/1 drops trying to get something stick, because he does know that this Imp Gang Boss is just going to be easily dealt with by the weapon plus just hitting in. I'm curious what he's going to go for here.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a few options, but it looks like he's actually going to Crazed Alchemist and Possessed Villager. He's trying to get as many bodies on the board as he can. And I'm trying to think of better uses for Crazed Alchemist in matchup. I think if he knew Bloodsail Raider was a thing, then it's one of the uses that might be better in the long run. But I can't blame him for getting some bodies into play.
So playing the Face Warrior deck, I feel like there has to be a point where Zalae is going to have to realize that he can't just strictly play for board against Zoo just because that's what Zoo does better than him. So one of these turns, you're going to see him decide, I need to go face, and he's just going to start going and hope he gets there. I'm curious if this is the turn.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, that's a really good point. Do you think now is the time? I mean, you could push 8 damage here, develop a 6/3 and a 2/1, and then have an Alkanite Reaper behind this. That's a lot of damage. And that means that you have a 4/3 and a 6/3 in play going into next turn. And barring some weird, Abusive Sergeant plus power overwhelming turns, at least one of your minions should be sticking around.
That's why I like the line that LBYS went with. He decided to get that Death Rattle creature on the board, so no matter what Zalae does, he will be able to Abusive that up and deal with one of these threats, which if you play the Imp Gang Boss, it just would have died to the board.
It looks like he's actually going to go ahead and just play this a little bit slow. Now, one thing this does do is it almost ensures that he has a Pirate around next turn, so he can get the Alkanite Reaper, and then possibly the turn after that gets to actually power it up. A 6/3 Alkanite Reaper getting 18 damage out of a 5-mana weapon is a rate that I would gladly play in any game of Hearthstone. So we're going to see if LBYS can get this board back and get some of these Pirates off the board, take that away from Zalae. What does he have options for him today?
Looks like he's going to go with the Gang Boss and then Abusive up this 1/1 and probably deal with that 6/3.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep fighting for board. And as you said, at some point in time, Zalae has to just start getting face damage in because Zoo's so good at doing it. He's so good at fighting for board, but he's doing a pretty good job of it. He even picks up a free Pirate this turn if he wants it. That Dread Corsair is pretty good in this deck. It's almost always free.
That's definitely a big pickup. As you see in WYS's hand, there's no way that he could have the buffs in the hand to easily deal with that 3 health taunt. So it's just going to protect his low health minions, and hopefully they'll get to push again.
Yeah, I think that's all Zalae is trying to find, right? It's like one source of repetitive damage that he can get through enough. And I mean, this is a great turn for him because I think you go ahead and use one of your weapon charges here to take care of the Imp Gang Boss because you have another weapon buff behind this. And I mean, look at this board. It's going to be so hard for LBYS to take back. And I mean, he's got a pair of 1-drops here. He's got a Flame Imp and a Voidwalker, but those are going to get run over pretty easily here.
Zalae's just has had an insane curve this game.
Yeah.
Because I was worried about a lot of times Zoo is better at fighting for board, and I said he's going to have to go face at some point, and that doesn't seem to be the case. He's just heavily fighting for board, clearing off the minions Zoo plays every single turn.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing the Zoo game better than the Zoo deck this game, it seems like. And yeah, you know what? I thought there's a chance he might tap and play 2 of the 1-drops, but I like just getting as much power into play here. I think you just have to get a 4/4 into play this turn and start trying to compete with what's going on. And I mean, Zalae's got a bunch of options, but I gotta believe he's gonna Blood Seal Cultist this turn. And then this is quite the big Blood Seal Raider. That's an 8/3. I think it's the biggest I've ever seen a Blood Seal Raider in my life. And you can see Zalae's actually kind of got like a smile on his face. He's kind of giggling here because I think he also realizes, like you said, this is like one of the harder matchups for him. This is a deck that could take the board away from you pretty fast. And his draw has just been insane this game.
This is just as well as a game could go for a Pirate Warrior.
That's a weird sentence to say, isn't it? Did you think you'd be saying that one today?
Definitely not. Definitely have to see this deck, though. It's just always fun to see new things, and it's always more fun to see when they work as well.
Yeah, of course. And like this is the Soulfire pickup here for LBYS gives him a little glimmer of hope. It allows him to remove the 8/3. He doesn't get the drawback here. He doesn't have to discard a card. He would have loved to have picked up something else he could play this turn. That Sea Giant's going to be a little too expensive here. Zalae with 10 damage here, not 11. So it looks like LBYS should be getting another draw step here. But I'm trying to think of what he could draw that somehow gets him into this game from here, and I can't think of anything. Like, you can't get the Sea Giant into play to taunt it up with a Defender of Argus, so I don't see how LBYS gets out of this spot.
Yeah,
Even mix up the Defender of Argus, yeah.
Game 1 going to Zalae on the back of the Pirate Warrior.
On the back of the strength of Pirate Warrior. If you're kind of out of the know in ladder play, I've actually seen this deck a tiny bit popping up. Zalae's been streaming with it a little bit. I believe Trump was at one point as well in the last couple of days, and a few other players. But it's one of those decks, I think a lot of people, when they see these guys streaming with it, they're like, oh, they're just having fun on their stream. It's there for the memes, and it's fun, and it's funny. But this deck, like, he was joking with me the other day, he's like, my win rate with this deck's at like 80%. And I don't mean I've won like, 8 of 10 games. He's won, 16 of like 20 and stuff. And that's a real thing. This deck has been putting up some very good results.
And as we saw, played one game and just swiftly got the win.
Yeah, I mean, when you get draws like that, though, it'll make any deck look good. So we're going to see if he keeps that up in Game 2 or if LBYS can even up this series. And it looks like they got switched up a little bit here on the feed. So it looks like Zalae is going to be playing, I'm guessing, a mid-range variant of Shaman. Usually when you see Manatee Totem and Tuskar Totemic, it means a little more late-game focused than just the aggro version. Is that how you've seen it?
Yeah, for sure. The thing is, we don't